Well, greetings, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of WTF Walk the Floors. I'm Stephanie Ledger with First Rate Hospitality, and I'm joined with my co host, Michelle Klein of Klein Hospitality. How are you today, Michelle?
I'm doing wonderful, Stephanie. How are you?
Doing great. What are we going to be talking about today?
We are going to be talking about employee benefits provided the hospitality way. And to do so, we have a very special guest in the house, Hector Cervantes from Cragen and Pike. Hector, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you both for having me. I feel honored to be here.
We are so excited that you're here. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your career. I know that you have been somewhat in the hospitality industry, more from a retail perspective a few years back, but that's kind of where you picked up all these customer service passion, right? So tell us a bit about who
Yeah.
you are, what you do today, and so on.
Okay. To kind of set the time frame there. So I graduated high school here locally in Las Vegas, and I decided to go to school for finance at UNLV. And when I did that, my first semester, I was exposed to a company who sold electric vehicles at the time. Their name is Tesla. And I dropped out of school and I decided to join them and join their sales team. So that was very unique and it was super hard to get acquainted to and tell my parents about. And at the time, which I didn't know, is that they were hoping to focus into the luxury market and they had to understand their competitors from a different standpoint. So what they did was they hired a bunch of people from the luxury retail market to run a electric vehicle company, which who would have thought that would have worked out in its best interest. But if you're selling, a Tesla against a BMW or Mercedes, and they have all this luxury, ambient lighting, and beautiful leather, then you really have to understand the value proposition of what you're selling and understand your product. So I started there, and at some point, I decided that wasn't the career path that was for me, and I decided to go back to school. And through my venture at school and my journey there, I ended up working for a high-end luxury retailer called Ferragamo, and that was at the Forum Shops. And even through my interview process, it was pretty unique. They asked me if I ever sold a handbag before, and I was like, no, never. But I will tell you, I've sold $160,000 cars, like if that makes a difference. And I was pretty good at that. And so sure enough, we go through the interview process and I know nothing about high-end retail, know nothing about leather. I have no idea the craftsmanship behind, clothing, the stitching, the amount of time it takes. And so fast forward 3 years while I'm getting my degree, I'm working at this high-end luxury spot where you had to hold yourself up to a high standard. And people are spending money on shoes that would pay someone's mortgage, right? You have things that are worth $2,000, jackets that are worth $10,000, some handbags that are worth $40,000, $50,000. And you're speaking to a clientele that expects the highest and utmost service. And now I'm transitioning into a different role where I'm more of a service-based provider. And I still find myself going back and thinking about what my previous roles have taught me in terms of luxury and how to be hospitable and generous with the way you speak and the time you give and the attention that people, quite frankly, deserve when they're spending a certain time, amount of money or whatever that may be for the services that you're providing. So now I'm here. I work at a company called Cragen and Pike, as you mentioned, Michelle, and we are a corporate insurance agency, full service. So we offer 5 different pillars: corporate insurance, employee benefits, which is what I specialize in. We do private client. We work on bonds, and then we have a risk management section. So that's where I'm at now, and how I kind of came to be in that.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Hector. And so let's dive in a little bit more of talking about the employee benefits, the hospitality way. And I think how you were mentioning is your background with the luxury side and knowing how to handle the variety of clients that would be coming in. And we talk so much about our guests, but we also too have our internal clients and vendors that we want to making sure that they're being taken care of. So let's talk a little bit more about like the overview of employee benefits. Why is it important for the hotels to look at this when they're shopping around?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's actually under asked is why is it important? I think a lot of people kind of get the idea that you're just checking the box of offering it. And as I became more acquainted with the industry and understanding what it really means to cover and protect your employees, uh, you start to see that the highest expense on a balance sheet would be, of course, payroll, right? What you pay your employees. The second one underneath that is employee benefits and what you invest in them afterwards. So if you think about things of like a comprehensive package that you offer your employees, it's not just the wage you're paying them, it's also the benefits you're offering them. And when we look at that here at Craig and Pike, uh, there's a value to be added when you say, I want to offer this, right? And if you want to do it the right way, then there's a certain strategic placement you need to be looking at, right? And you got to understand the demographic of people you're hoping to cover. And not everything's going to work for everyone, right? So understanding that first and foremost, but understanding the data that's at hand. And for most hospitality companies, big or small, right, wrong, or indifferent, um, they are targeting the same type of employees. And when that's the case, you kind of have to use benchmarking tools to really understand who you're hoping to attract, what type of talent you want, and then ultimately how to be competitive in doing that. And if someone's offering this at the table and offering the bare minimum in terms of employee benefits, and someone on the opposite side of the table is offering the outside of just their compensation, then people are going to be more inclined to taking that offer. And that could be as low as the janitorial level all the way to the C-suite level. It's important to show how much you care about your employees by showing them the investment you take. And sometimes it's not even just the investment. People make the investment no matter what. It's how it's communicated down, right? And when you talk about vendors and service, that's where we are different, right? We are truly a partner and not just a consultant, right? The advice on how to tackle the problem. Well, the problem is ever evolving, right? So you're not really providing a cure. You want someone to be alongside you in the walk, not just stand with you. And that's kind of where we hold our heads up differently and say, we're part of your team. You made the investment to purchase the particular product, which in this case is insurance. So why not have someone that will automatically grow with you? And look at that as your demographic changes or the markets change and offer that advice, but also defend it by being a part of the problem. I'm sorry, being a part of the solution.
Hector, how do you address um, becoming a partner with some of these massive hospitality organizations or even the little ones when it comes to, you mentioned the importance of creating or crafting a specific package that makes sense to the team member, right? And now you are really, if you look at the entire organization, you're targeting very
Yeah.
different thoughts and needs and wants. How do you address that when it comes to,
Mhm.
especially the hospitality industry, where we have so many different backgrounds and different generations and different everything, really?
Yeah, that's a good question. I find myself asking the hard question in regards to values, right? Um, let's see what you want to get out of this, right? Let's think, what do you want the next 12 months to look like? And then if we're doing this correctly, what do you want the next 10 years to look like, right? And some people and some organizations may not think that far in advance, and that's totally fine. But the value that we're adding here is if we're looking at this every 12 months, then you're not managing it correctly, right? The long-term point of view is to say that we're going to have employee satisfaction through offering these plans, right? And if a hotel decided to do a whole new remodel, they don't think in regards to a year. They think 5 years in advance, 10 years in advance, just to make it well worth their investment. Same thing with restaurants, same thing with Ferragamo when I was working there. So when you look at this and you're seeing as a long-term perspective, understanding the values and what they're hoping to do for your organization. And then when you're picking the vendor that you want like to go with, then you're looking at custom out, like how it can be customizable to you, right? And how does that firm or
Right.
agency
Mhm.
have a resume that resonates and aligns with that, right? Because if you pick someone And I use this reference all the time. Like, you're going to call a plumber when your pipes need to get fixed because that's what that guy does, right? And he's reputable. He'll fix your pipes, but you don't call a handyman to fix those pipes and you expect him to get it done in the same manner, right? He's going to get it done, but probably not as efficient because he's a man of all trades. And when we're looking at ourselves as an agency, we have the clientele and the list of, um, you know, reputable hospitality companies that we deal with here internally that shows that we have that proven track record that we can do that. And that's super important, is showing that. And then at the end, making sure that they complement, right? All things set aside, if I'm not willing to answer the phone call when you call, then that's probably a good sign that we probably shouldn't do business together. So values have to, complement each other. The overall end goal has to complement each other. A lot of things have to fall in line in order for everyone to do business, synergistically and harmoniously.
Nice. So let's talk a little bit more about when selecting and, what crucial elements it is when, say, HR or someone is looking and wanting to go with your company. What are some things that they should be looking at or even questions to be asking?
Yeah, good question. I like to think about insurance as, we think about the word value proposition, I think, incorrectly when we look at the actual purchase of insurance. Most businesses and bigger companies already buy it, right? So there's two big questions that I like to ask people to ask themselves. Is one, how is this going to impact you as the buyer and the decision maker? And then how is it going to impact the organization? Right. And if you were to really trickle it down, it ends up possibly bringing into one thing, right? So one, for the person who's purchasing this, right, how does it impact them? Well, quite simply is you have a partner, right? And you have to vet out your partner, understand what they like, how they work. Do you guys align? And then the second question, right, how does it, impact the organization? If you do make changes, how is that going to impact the bottom line? And how, is it going to increase that employee engagement? And what's the customer service going to look like for everyone, if that's something that they offer? Now, if it's just a solution-based product, then they're just going to offer it, you buy it, and then you take it and run with it. But when you're selecting your partners, it's super important to understand what you're getting and set those boundaries up front, right? Because the last thing you want to do is purchase something that isn't necessarily what you wanted. And I think that starts with the top down, right? Understanding what they're going to do for your employees for the same price as someone else. So the value proposition is they purchased it. And then there's the partnership proposition of who you're buying it from. And if that aligns much better for the same price, then that's probably what you want to be looking at. Now, there is, in some instances, you get what you pay for, right? Where you could be a little more frugal with the cost of your insurance. But at the end of the day, you're not paying for protection at that point. You're paying to meet, a checklist saying, I got insurance. And like I said, everyone has them. Everyone could sell it if you have a license. But at that point, you're looking at, are they a partner? Are they going to save me time when it comes to it? Am I going to be able to sleep at night if I have it? And all these really important questions come apart when you start looking at the cost of insurance. And when you make the right purchases, then it ends up covering you more often than not.
That's great. I also love the fact that you you guys all at Cragen and Pike, you look at the way of delivering that service with the same level of detail that we do in the industry, right? Because if we go above and beyond to create that partnership with our guests and with our team members. But if we were to think about who we serve from a revenue standpoint, right? In your case is the organization, in our case is the guest. We do it going far and beyond and providing that level of hospitality that is going to blow someone's socks off, right? So I think that in many instances, there are some organizations out there that look for checking that box because it's the one thing that you need to do. But then there's a lot of other brands that really want to partner only with organizations that will provide that solution at the same level as we provide the service. right? So I think that's so important, because now you're speaking the same language, and more than likely you as a solution provider, you're trying to inject yourself in understanding what that language looks like, right? And how do I better communicate with you, the decision maker, or how do I create that narrative that is going to resonate with the line level team member who's behind a dishwasher
Mhm.
thinking about their future or
Mhm.
their children's future, right? So I think
Yeah,
that having the ability to adapt to all those scenarios, that's what hospitality really is.
100%. I love the way you phrase that. In terms of hospitality, I like to think to myself as a reference when I worked at Ferragamo, and the store next to us was Louis Vuitton, and people would be so upset at their shopping experience right next door. And at that point, they brought the name. They went in there for the name of Louis Vuitton, which I'm not knocking it down. They make beautiful products, right? But they're so volume focused. They would get hundreds of thousands of people a year walking through that store. And it was so hard for them to cater and create that personalized shopping experience for most people, especially if you weren't purchasing $40,000, $50,000 worth of product at that time. And then I look at us next door, and we're a well-known name. The brand is there, but it was nice to see when people wanted a shopping experience, when they wanted to spend $2,000, $3,000 at minimum, they would come in and they would get this experience that would blow their socks off. And I like to make the argument sometimes of, when you're selecting that vendor, or you're looking for that hospital, that hotel, or you're looking for that restaurant, whatever it comes to in terms of hospitality, when you create that unforgettable experience, a lot of it has to do with the standards that the place has set for themselves, over exceeding what the expectation already is,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Mhm.
And when I worked at Ferragamo, the standard was to treat everyone the same, regardless of who walked in there. You gave them your time, you asked them their questions, and you catered to that particular client as long as they were in there. And for some people, they're in there for a couple hours. So you create that personal experience, and you remember them, and you go above and beyond. Now, fast forwarding to this career, same thing. We get a phone call and we jump on it. There isn't a, oh, we're going to transfer you to this number, we're going to transfer you to that number. It's, how can I help you, and how can I be your point of contact? And now at that point, the standards over exceed the expectation. They thought they were going to get transferred to someone else who could help them. But then we take that problem, we resolve it right on the front end of it, and we save them time, right? Which makes an unforgettable experience. They were going to remember the time that we answered the phone, and we didn't, transfer them to a different department. We kept it right there, and we handled it as it came. And
I
I think
love
that's the
that.
same thing for hotels and casinos, and anything in the hospitality industry. People come in and they expect, 5-star, service everywhere they go. And quite frankly, like I said, they deserve it. When you're spending the money, you deserve attention. You deserve to have a personalized experience. But some people forget about that when it became more volume based, and now their standards become really low, and then everyone else's expectation gets higher. So that, like, teeter totter needs to kind of be a more on the standards heavy than it has to be on the expectation heavy.
I love that.
That's beautiful. And I really like it too. I'm sure that our HR directors or benefits managers, they're going to have that employee that comes in and asks that one unique question, and the employee is, needing an expectation. Maybe it's one of their independents that's on the insurance plan, that's getting ready to go to a doctor's office, or has been diagnosed, or some kind of something
Mhm.
has come up, and then it's not a typical answer that it's just like, oh yeah, you can look on your employee benefits package, and the manager,
Yeah.
wants to be able to help out with them, and then they're like, oh, I hopefully can get back to you in a week. But I'm sure, with utilizing you, Hector, is, now being able to call, and then you able to provide that answer, or update them of when you'll be able to find it, instead of just going directly to voicemail, or getting the ring around, because we've all been there.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
you're like, oh, hopefully, oh no, now we're going to transfer you, please press 5.
Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Some people don't act with the same amount of urgency that you projected onto them. So
Yeah.
that's super important that they act with the same amount of urgency when they answer the phone.
Yeah. And I also think that when we serve a specific industry, like you said, Hector, where standards are high, we should be serving with the same level of standards, right? So this leads me to our closing question, which is your WTF walk the floors type of moment. What would
Yeah.
you say that is? And I'm sure you have many, but if you can, share only one, which one would that be?
Okay. As of recently, I got a phone call from a restaurant owner who wanted to know more about our services in terms of employee benefits. So, you go through the discovery call to make sure that one, you align with what he wants, but two, that you can provide what he wants. I don't believe in saying that I'm the solution for every single problem. I'm a resource for most, but I'm not a solution for everything. And so we go through this discovery call, and during the discovery call, I ask him about the amount of employees, who's on the plan, what he hopes to get out of this conversation, all that and so forth. And then I discover that um, one, he doesn't have a lot of people on the plan, but he wants to offer the insurance, and he's very generous with his contribution. And as I was looking through his bills, I was seeing that he was getting charged a 20% consultant fee, and he didn't realize that there was a 20% consultant fee. He was just paying it. And then on top of that, he was also paying the commissions from the carrier. So we're having a conversation, and because he's a little bit smaller of a restaurant, he's paying about almost $100,000 a year in health insurance, and 20,000 of that is in a consultant fee, and that's unheard of, regardless of size. 20% for a consultant fee is absurd. And I tell him, look, man, uh, I'm going to do you the favor and give you the time and attention that you deserve. And I'm going to take away that 20% fee because we're going to keep to our moral compass here and make sure that you're just paying for what you're getting here. And they weren't even servicing the account. They weren't consulting him. They were renewing him every year, and they were doing the bare minimum of their job. And it was just sell the insurance and then call it a day. And I thought that was so bad that they created such a negative experience and maybe just give them a bad taste of what a consultant looks like. But it happens so frequently. And I think to myself, if you're paying for the services, what are you getting out of it? And sometimes more often than not, I almost push back. If you know how much you're paying your consultant or your broker, if you was an employee, would you hire him for that exact same price tag? Because if so, then you're probably in a good spot. But if not, and there's any reasonable doubt, you probably need to reevaluate that relationship. Because if he was worth it, you wouldn't question it. And for him, he was not worth 20%. I'll tell you that. So it was really bad to see that because he wasn't the biggest restaurant in the West Coast that he was treated this way. And again, a lot of it comes down to holding ourselves to a high standard. Regardless of who calls here, I'm going to give you the exact same attention as the person who called before you. And I think it's really something that's unpracticed in our industry and in a lot of other industries. And I think that's something that I was like, what? Like, why would he pay that? Like, why did no one tell him? That's a lot of money. And he did that for the last 7 years. So he's going to have a really hard conversation here in the future. But yeah, that was really bad. And I've seen worse, but that one was something that really hit home to me because of how small and intimate the restaurant was.
Wow. Yeah, I think it's also too of, we talk a lot about word of mouth of, based upon the service that we want, how much that they've had a great experience. So then the other, who they're talking to with their friends and family, that they're like,
Yeah.
oh, you know what, I have time coming up, maybe I'll look at that for my family vacation. And I'm sure it's the same way with you, Hector, too, is you saving that person with the 20% and really looking at it line by line of how they're able to save, especially being such a small business. Is now I'm sure that if he has a friend or knowing someone else that they're looking to change who they're utilizing for their employee benefits, and now
Yeah.
being like, no, you have to talk to Hector. It's great.
Yeah, and I hope that that continues to be the way, right? It's that I provide this excellent service that kind of follows me, and I can build that referral base.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Hector, for your insights. We always love bringing solution providers into the show so that we can show and prove to the various brands out there that there is a way to provide um, a solution in a hospitable way that
Yeah.
matches the needs of the end user. So this is just lovely, super aligned with what we do and what we believe in. So thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your insight. If anyone wants to reach out to you, how do they do that? How do they get a hold of you?
Well, I would say I give out my number to most people, but because of the
I'm
podcast,
assuming, do you have a
uh,
LinkedIn profile
I do have a LinkedIn
that you want to
profile.
share? Okay,
I can share that. Yeah, go ahead and share it. If do I provide it here or
beautiful.
do I provide it via email? Or I don't know how you guys want to go about sharing it.
We will add that to the notes of the show.
Yeah,
So if you want to get a hold of Hector, you can connect with him on LinkedIn. Otherwise, you guys have a main office in Las Vegas. Is that right,
yeah,
Hector?
yeah. Yeah, you can
Wonderful.
go to craigandpike.com and then you can connect with us there.
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you so much again, Hector, for being on the show.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks.